To the left, we have the Samsung S95D. To the right, we have the Sony Bravia 9. Essentially, the Sony Bravia 9 is an extremely flat TV that leaves a lot to be desired. And I mean, a lot. You're going to see dead faces. You're going to see flat imagery. It's going to be very pale. And you're going to think to yourself, how the hell did this TV cost me $3,000? For most cases and scenario, you're going to find yourself craving and wanting more depth at pretty much all times while watching this TV. There's going to be very few times where you look at the Sony and go, wow, this is everything I've ever wanted. Most of the time, you're going to look at the Sony Bravia 9 to the right and think, why? I don't know why they went back from their OLED, their quantum dot OLED push. I think that was very stupid. I think that, again, this is what happens when you want to try to reinvent the wheel. Now, don't get me wrong, the Bravia 9 can get exceptionally close to an OLED comparatively, but again, it's not an OLED, so there's not really a point in it trying to be an OLED with its granularity or, any of that stuff, because it's not going to work. You can clearly see in all of these examples how the colors specifically fall apart. They look flat. It leaves a lot, and I mean a lot, to be desired. The Samsung is like a crystal. You are looking through that TV. You feel like you're a part of every event. You feel like you're right there watching it live. And when you game, you are totally, completely, 100% immersed on the S95D. Now, that's rocking my settings, to which a lot of people love to say, oh, well, that's not fair, Quantum. You can't have your setting calibrated going up against Sony, to which I'll just remind everybody that Sony is calibrated as well, lens to living room. The Bravia 9 is a Master Series television noted for their calibration skills. That's literally the whole idea behind Sony. And why you're paying, a part of the reason why you're paying $3,000, look it up, is because every Sony TV is just calibrated out the rip. And that includes their cinema mode, which is made to look 100% accurate. But if you look at this example, this is telling. This is showing you how flat it looks, how ugly it looks. This is the 30-year-old reference calibration to the right on the Bravia 9, and this is what I offer to the left. Now, again, if you watch, I mean, that was horrible. No, we're running that back. By the way, first time looking at this demo, and I just did that in real time, and I'm going to do it here. That was literally probably the worst I'd seen. Pause right there. Look at her face. What the fuck? Like, come on. This is what you're going to get out of the box, okay? And now I'm going to show you what I took it to so that we have a better appreciation for what we're going to get out of the Bravia 9 after calibration settings. Again, I'm no miracle worker, right? There's not a whole lot that I can do because there's not a lot there to work with. And even after a calibration, Bravia 9 still has some issues. Like, as far as color is concerned, depth, clarity, I mean, the Samsung is popping off at you, and you're just like, damn, Samsung, you're going hard in the paint. And then you look over at the Bravia 9, and you're like, well, you're bright. I mean, you're brighter. And this is where we enter the conversation of 2024. Brighter is not better. We saw it with the TCL with their insane brightness, and now we're seeing it with Sony with their insane brightness. The brightness thing, they need to let it go. I don't want useless brightness. I want brightness that can actually be used. Because what's the point in having all this brightness that looks so amazing as long as you don't use all of it? Or as long as you tone it down, or like, it's stupid, right? And I think that's what we're dealing with in 2024. And that's something that I think needs to be addressed and fixed. Because, I mean, come on. I don't think anybody expected a Sony to do this poorly up against a Samsung, but here we are. You're seeing it in real time. The Sony is just kind of hazy is the word. By comparison, everything has this general haze, and it makes things look fuzzy and just not sharp. That's the short and sweet of it. Now, the long and depth answer is anything that has a strong structure or contrast to it at all will look worse on the Sony 9 times out of 10. In this example, not the case. It looks equal. But the cityscape here, for example, we just go ahead and pause that. The Samsung, we're not on a black background, by the way, so this is why this becomes relevant. Because even in bright scenes like this, the Sony is hazy and fuzzy. Look at the cities versus how sharp everything is. You compare each object, find it over here, you do the same thing. Look at this building here, go over there, find the building, more contrast. You're just missing too much for the price. And that's, I mean, like, look at the mountains. Look at all the grooves and the shadows in the mountains. and then look at it over here. You're missing too much on the Sony. And I think the more people try to damage control this and justify this and try to pretend like, oh no, Sony is always king, I mean, the more people are just going to waste their money, which again, I'm not here to change minds, but this is transparency for transparency's sake. And now if you're asking at this point in the video, why am I showing something that other YouTubers haven't showcased before? That's a question only they can answer, because here at Quantum TV, you're going to get the truth. And as it sits, the truth is, I like the Bravia 9. I think the Bravia 9 is a great TV by itself. But if you start comparing it to your options within the same price point, pause right here, it becomes very clear when we start looking at structural differences, like I was telling you. Look at the intensity of the water here. Look at the rocks, how detailed they are, and look at how just not detailed they are on the Sony Bravia 9. For $3,000, I'm sorry, I don't want to be outclassed in any way. I want to know that I have the King of Kings, and when I paid $3,000 for a Sony, you know, that name, and then I'm taking this heavy TV out of the box, I'm accepting downgrades on the remote, I'm accepting downgrades by not getting the Bravia cam in the box like we got last year on the A95L for the same exact price. It just feels like Sony is cutting corners and the customer is paying for it. You know, these TVs going for $3,000 a pop, this is putting Sony in a different tax bracket, not you. So you have no real reason to defend this nonsense right here, because look at your city scene right now. Now you see, again, a pale, ugly, not as good scene as this, where you have all the details you could want. And again, this is proof that Samsung's real depth enhancing technology is just leagues above what Sony has been able to produce with their cognitive processor on the Bravia 9. So even though they talk about the XR chipset and everything and the focal points and blah, 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 marketing is good, okay? That's their job though. And I'll say it again, marketing is good, but that's their job. Because when you get to real scenes and real content, I'm sorry, but the Sony is not a king of kings. They are not a champion of champions. And just try to seriously look at what you can see when you even look at like people and commercials and moving stuff. Dude, the clarity on the Samsung, I really can't put into words how much of a difference there is in person and how truly dramatic it is, to the point where you don't even really expect it to be this dramatic, if I'm being honest with you. You think Sony would be able to throw a few blows in the direction of Samsung, but what ends up happening, the Sony falls so far behind that you start asking yourself, how did Sony let this happen for the price? And I think that's really where we are today. Like, I don't know. There are people that love Sony, and I love Sony. I'm recording it with my Sony a7 IV right now. But I'm also realistic in that when they're not where they need to be, I tell you. Because look at the mountains now. It's literally like a crystal on the Samsung. Now, for anybody that doesn't know why this is such a big deal, the Samsung this year has a matte finish screen that kind of takes away from the contrast and doesn't allow it to be as sharp. Could you imagine the monster this TV would have been if it would have had the glossy screen that allowed for better contrast? The S95D, for all intents and purposes, has beaten every single TV I've put up against it this year, with the Samsung S90D being the only exception. Every single TV has been getting destroyed by a TV with a matte finish screen and less contrast than normal. Let that sink into how the other companies are doing. I mean, Sony had I'll pause right here, every chance to dominate Samsung in this example. It's a bright scene, it's a QD mini LED, there's no reason why a QD mini LED should pull ahead here, but it does. Because you have better contrast. Look at how ugly the landscape is. Even after my calibration settings in, again, for perspective, I'll show you what Sony's doing, okay? So that you know that this is what Sony wants you to watch. It's even worse. It doesn't get better. It really doesn't. I mean, the Field of Flowers is dead. This is telling. This is showing. This is the TV that you spent all this money on to invite your upper middle class friends over and watch, your family members over to watch, to have fuzzy, blurry, hazy mountains and, you know, details that don't look like you paid $3,000 for. This is the TV that you just buy because you have more money than you have brains. You don't really know what to do with all that money, or how to make a good purchase, or how to research what your options are for that money, and you end up dumping it all on a TV that looks like trash. Because the only way that it looks like I just showed you is with my settings, and that means you have to join the channel, pay $4.99, and then unlock your TV. to see the results that I'm showing you here in real time. To which, again, not everybody's going to do that. There are a lot of Bravia 9 owners at Best Buy walking away with it like, oh, well, this is just the TV I get, and this is what it looks like. That ugly crap versus what I give. It's ridiculous. And then, let's say we go back to my settings here, okay? When you go back to my settings, I mean, it helps a ton, but at the same time, it can't work miracles, right? I can't give it more contrast than the TV can produce. So while I can get your colors better and your brightness and your contrast and all that fun stuff buttoned up, I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get more contrast out of a TV that just doesn't have it. And I think that's the part that I personally found the most frustrating with this entire process. I want the Sony Bravia 9 to be better than it's capable of being, and that's really like the simple, honest truth. For every scene that you watch on the Bravia 9, you know, Samsung is just overtaking it and doing it better in a lot of examples. This example, though, they look kind of identical, right, with the contrast, but the details on that Samsung are just better. Now, this might seem very one-sided towards the Samsung, but the truth of the matter is, when you really look at it objectively, it kind of is. And again, people try to say that, oh, you cannot compare an OLED to a mini LED, a quantum dot QD mini LED. It's not fair. But it is fair because they're the same price. And if they're the same price, I'm walking away with the better TV. I don't care about your feelings. Fuck those feelings, right? We're going to speak in truths. We're going to tell you what's up. I mean, pause here, okay? And you can do this yourself. You go to the Samsung 4K demo, the quiet check, okay? And literally look at this church, right? And you'll pay attention comparatively, especially if you have these TVs side by side. You'll notice that you just do not have all the details that you'll have on the Samsung in this window and all that good stuff. Now, I don't have a camera with the highest dynamic range, and as I look at it on screen, the Samsung does look like it's crushing out, particularly right in here. It's not crushing out, the blacks are just that deep, and my camera can't capture that detail, especially as it tries to meter for an entire television. The short and sweet of metering, it's trying to rack a general exposure from the darkest to the brightest to try to give you the exposure correctly for both TVs. Cameras can't do that yet. So do keep that in mind. You have to listen to the words I'm telling you, whether you like them or not. That, you know, it's the truth, right? Like in this example, the Bravia 9 is brighter than what the Samsung is, and the Samsung has more detail and more color by like a lot, to the point where I'm gravitating and like bam, right over there towards the Samsung with how much color there is. And that's where we get to a conversation that's a little uncomfortable. If you buy the Bravia 9, you are literally shooting yourself in the foot. You're going to work every single day, saving money or not saving money because you have a good job and you can afford it. And you're buying a TV that's just not going to give you the same amount of contrast that a Samsung is going to give you. Now, people can argue with that. People can say, I don't like it. People can say, you know, you're bought and paid off. You hate Sony. You have a grudge against Sony. To which I'll say, I love the gaming experience I had on the Bravia 9. I found it to be a lot of fun. But it's not perfect, and there are things that it does need to work on. And I try to show those things off as transparently as I can. And I think Buildings will do a great job of showing you the contrast difference between any TV. And as we look at all these contrast differences, scene after scene after scene, yeah, it's just a win for the Bravia 9s. No, not the Bravia 9, for the Samsung. Now, in the interest of fairness, what we're going to do next is we're going to show you guys what it looks like when we put on, I don't know, like maybe gaming or something like that, so you can see like how the two differentiate in terms of game mode and things of that nature. So I'll go ahead and put that on now. Okay, so here we are in game mode on both the Bravia 9 and the Samsung S95D to give you guys an idea of what gaming is like on both of these displays. It's, again, more of the same story. The Bravia 9 just falls behind in a lot of ways. And yes, it can look similar, but it is not going to pull ahead where it matters. Colors can be nice on the Bravia 9. I'm not saying that they can't. They can be mesmerizing at times, beautiful, but I'm promising you this right now. You get the Bravia 9, you're going to say this: I wish it had more depth, more contrast if you start comparing it to other TVs in the same price point. So I just had the game bar up to show you that they're both in game mode, right? VRR on, all that good stuff. And again, you see you have some options here on the Sony. It's all set up. I mean, the way that it's set up, right? But you can clearly see that even if you just look at like the ammo dump machine here in Borderlands 3, it's just got more clarity. I mean, like, I don't know what YouTube's going to show you or what my camera's going to show you, but looking at it with my eye, first I'm looking at the Samsung, loads of color, contrast, clarity. I mean, it really does look like crystal clear, like three-dimensional objects. And then I look over at the Sony, very flat color, not really as bright where it needs to be, even though it has the better overall brightness. And it just starts to feel like, man, like, you overpaid. And that's really the feeling here. Like, because when you go outside, the Sony by far is the brighter TV, but look at what happens to the Samsung. It gets dimmer to show you the details where it needs to show you the details, like in the planet, where you don't have that detail on the Samsung at all, or rather on the Sony to the right. The Samsung to the left is doing a significantly better job in every real way that matters. And then you see the depth and you see the isolation. I mean, like, look at all that depth in the land and look at how flat and ugly and pale the Sony is. This is game mode to game mode. So you can't even say like, oh, he's just using cinema mode. No, game mode to game mode, Samsung is the better TV every day of the week. And okay, so we're not beating it in cinematic stuff. We're not beating it in, gaming. I mean, where do you pick up a win? That's where it becomes hard, because it's like, is there a win to be had here? And I don't feel like there is, which is ultimately why I say that the Bravia 9 just loses to the Samsung, because not even input lag is better. It's just not as responsive. Don't get me wrong, the Bravia 9 is a great set. Again, non-comparatively, if you just walk into a store and you're not really caring about like what your options and choices for that price are, then yeah, sure, get a Bravia 9. Woohoo, have fun. But this isn't a dig on Sony, because as I said, I like the Bravia 9. Even after all the negative stuff I said, if I didn't know any better, I'd like the Bravia 9. Or if I only wanted to stay in the Sony ecosystem of products, because, maybe everything I own is Sony, then yeah, I would probably go that route. But no, I own multitudes of different products. So I'm not loyal to Sony or, Samsung or any of that. I mean, look at the chest here. Look at how three-dimensional it is on Samsung. That depth from the real depth enhancer is really what's going to make the biggest difference. When you really tone a Samsung correctly, hear this, it will blow away any Sony that you can look at. And that's not going to make a lot of people happy. There are going to be people that disagree. But overall, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to see it like I see it. It's going to blow it away, as it's getting blown away here. And it's like, again, I don't know. There are people that, have opinions and feelings about every time you say something against a brand that they like. They gotta, soldier and champion for that brand, which power to you, man. Life's too short, in my opinion. These are TVs ultimately, and I'm doing this review not from a vindictive point of view. I'm doing it for a transparent point of view, because I want Sony to watch a video like this and go, damn, you know what? Bravia 9 maybe not our best move. Maybe we have some room to improve. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back and do QD OLED again. Or if we go a Bravia 10, right, then we're going to make it the best fucking thing you've ever seen, with the most vibrant, rich color that Samsung could never hope to rival in a million years. But that doesn't happen, and instead what we get is some watered down version of what we actually deserve, and that's the part where it becomes very hard to recommend the Bravia 9. Now I'm showing you like a gameplay session so you guys can see what it looks like when you do gaming on this thing, but for all intents and purposes, it's not great. It's not great at all, and I think that's the thing that you have to consider when you're looking at the Bravia 9. So looking at the Journey of Color demo, you'll see that the Samsung has spades of color and contrast. Particularly look at the boat there. This is what, again, the Sony Bravia 9 to the right looks like by default out of the box, and this is what you are going to get when you pay for it. You are not going to be getting what I've been showing where it can keep up with the QD OLED. You're going to see how far behind it really is. And this is, again, why you don't see a lot of the reviewers putting it, again, up against a QD OLED. They put it up against a WOLED, yeah, sure, because they know WOLED color is garbage. They're not going to put it up against something that can absolutely bake the pants off it to such a dramatic degree like what you're seeing here. Hence, you haven't seen a proper correction or comparison rather between the two displays. As you are clearly seeing here, the Samsung pulls ahead in spades. Again, you need to really know how to fix the irregularities on the Sony if you're going to get anything out of it worth your time. Because your only options on the Sony, I kid you not, are like literally like, okay, so you get cinema, which that's their like accurate mode calibrated for cinema, okay? But then their standard, which is what they think everybody wants to see. Yeah, you get more brightness and the contrast is good too, but there's a core problem. Look at your colors. Let's just go ahead and play that. In fact, I'll run it back to the beginning so you can get an idea of how bad it is. The color is so bad that to call this anywhere close to accurate is a joke. And it's a $3,000 TV shipping like this. This is what they do to you. And this is why I do what I do, where I offer a service where for $5, $4.99, you can get my settings and get away from this ugly, disgustingly pale garbage. I have been the loudest person in this sector about how dreadful it is when you get home with your brand new TV wanting to watch all your favorite stuff and then you're stuck looking at something that looks 30 years old and nobody sees a problem with it. Everybody thinks you should go on having to struggle hiring calibrators for $500 a piece, upwards, just so that you can get picture quality you should have had when you paid the $3,000 price tag. I'll pause right here, okay, and let you see it for yourself. This is what you're getting for $3,000 to the right. And I can't stress how ridiculous this is. This isn't even fair. I mean, to call this a fair trade is just, it's a spit in the face of everybody who ever did business. Now, again, you can go to vivid mode, more of the same. It's just really, really blue. And this is what Sony thinks you want to see in the retail store. And this is what they use to grab a lot of people's attention. And they'll just let you watch a lot of stuff like flowers on a black background to try to razzle and dazzle you with how bright it is and how cool and vibrant the colors are. But you get it home, that's what it does to skin tones. You see, there's a reason why retail stores show flowers on black backgrounds or a bunch of stuff on black backgrounds and stay away from actual people. Because they don't want you to actually see that if you look at a person, it's going to look terrible. And I mean damn terrible. You can go down to standard, which is what they think most people will watch as a standard, or you can go to cinema, which is what they say is accurate. But you're noticing a theme here. It all looks bad. Now again, you want my settings? This is what it looks like. Again, better, but still not perfect because I can't work miracles. And I think that's the thing here. The Sony, for all intents and purposes, is doing a terrible job at giving you all the contrast and clarity. I mean, look at the detail coming off. I mean, pause right here. I mean, I've been using this scene for years, guys. Years. Since it came out in 2015, okay, with SUHD. I mean, really, guys. It's to the point where the color is so pale on the Sony. Like, Sony used to have rich, vibrant reds like that, and they just don't now. And I don't know what the disconnect is. Again, mind you, post calibration to my settings, which are incredible, okay, comparatively to what you get out of the box, which again, you're either rocking vivid mode, which looks like this. This is what they use to get you to buy the TV in the first place. Or you're gonna be rocking standard mode, which looks like this. Again, this is something they give you out of the box because they think this is what most people want to see as a standard. But she literally looks like a blue zombie in her skin tone. Look at her arm comparatively to freaking proper calibration. She literally looks like a skinwalker, dude. Like, I don't understand the appeal. You can go to native and fix it a little bit, or standard, cinema, and fix it a little bit, but the reds are still pale. This looks a lot closer to like a LG G4 than anything Sony has ever produced. It doesn't look good, guys. And these are my settings right here. Again, not able to work miracles on this thing, especially with regular content. It gets to a certain point where you do hit a ceiling on the Bravia 9, and that ceiling is made known very quickly. I mean, we'll run that back just so you can see like facial details and what you're missing. It's depressing, if I'm being honest with you, because year after year I have to tell you, like, hey, you know what? Sony did it again. They failed to produce a TV that, like, you deserve to see. I mean, look at lack of contrast. Look at all the shadows around her eyes, her nose, her eyebrows, her hair, her dress lines, everything. You see it all on the Samsung S95D to the left, and on the Bravia 9 to the right for $3,000. You're not getting that. And that's with a proper calibration. And out of the box, it gets even worse. Nobody goes through and shows you this stuff when you're spending $3,000. But see, in the retail store, they just show you vibrant color. Yeah, that blue is very vibrant and that red is very vibrant, but you blasted it with a cool color temperature on purpose to make it look exaggerated, so that when people see your TV, they go, wow, that Sony's colors are so vibrant. Wow, look at that red. Wow, look at that blue. And yeah, sure, if everybody looks like a ghost, literally a ghost, then yeah, fantastic. Go with the Bravia 9 then. I mean, but the more you get closer and closer to realistic color post-calibration, the more and more you're going to see it ain't where it's at. There's cinema right there. Faded, washed, pale. Colors no longer are as vibrant as they were a moment ago. See, this is the problem I have with these cinema modes and all these accurate modes. They mute color to a disgusting degree. And that's really, truthfully, the only way I could describe the Bravia 9's color. It's muted. Now I was able to restore a great deal of it back through some hard work, but I can't get the contrast to look like that ever. And that's my problem. The contrast will just never be equivalent to what we get. I mean, let's run that back, okay? The contrast will literally never, ever be as good as what we have on the Samsung. And that's a damn shame, because you're paying the same money. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but I'm passionate about this, guys, if you can't tell. I'm passionate about when you pay for something, you get what you pay for, and you're not overspending. Like, Sony wants you to pay this ridiculous, never heard of before price for a mini LED. You know, it's old technology. It's not brand new. They aren't reinventing the wheel. They think that they are with their backlighting system, but a backlight can only do so much, as you can clearly see the contrast differences. And this is, I mean, they're going to try to tell you, oh no, we have so much control over our backlighting and everything's going to look realistic. And I'm going through this great length to show you how bad your Sony Bravia 9 is going to look. Again, this is vivid mode. Again, this is standard mode. And again, this is cinema mode. Just showing you how bad this shit looks. How muted and washed and pukey the colors look. She looks like a ghost with seasickness, man. You're not getting a real picture. And I look over at the Samsung and I fall in love with this TV all over again, because I see it, I'm like, damn, they really made something special with the Samsung S95D. And maybe I was a little harsh with my initial critiques on its matte finish screen, because TV after TV, like I said, is collected names. Bravia 9's a part of that now. And I think when that's the case, you can kind of see what's up. Now again, there are some people that wanted me to compare this to my Samsung Q8 FN. I think that'll be a nice comparison to do next. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. But guys, this is abysmal stuff coming out of Sony. Sony should know better than this. A lens to living room company should know what skin tones look like, since they're around it every day. And again, I put settings in to make it look better, and it does look better, but better is not a miracle, which I cannot perform, as I've said. But that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.